You are told that your child has cancer and it is an incurable disease. Unfortunately, we have no solutions. That night, I saw 2 children die right before my eyes. And I said, why me? When my daughter Bella was 4 years old, she suddenly became paralyzed overnight without warning. She went through a grueling surgery. She was put in a medically induced coma. My wife posted online, Bella's in a coma. She can't go out and do the things that she would normally do. And so her early childhood was very challenging. Bella could not speak and articulate like typical children. We knew what it was like to be made fun of and be marginalized. I could not find anything on earth that could help my own little girl until she passed away at the age of 10. On the night that she passed away, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade of the Miami Heat wrote #LiveLikeBella on their shoes, and #LiveLikeBella went viral. If we can focus on one particular area, then that's what we should do.
And I'm sure Bella will be so proud of her dad, her mom, and her sister. Hi, everyone. On today's show, I will be interviewing the president and CEO of ALC Home Health in Miami, Raymond Rodriguez-Torres. Raymond, welcome to the show. You spent 21 years in pharma, then tragedy struck with your daughter Bella's illness. Can you take us back to that turning point and how it changed your life and career direction?
Well, it's a pleasure to be on the show today, and I appreciate being able to spend some time with you and with your listeners. I spent quite some time in pharma, as you mentioned, and enjoyed a very successful career commercializing a lot of different medications over the span of 2 decades. And in great irony, much of the work that I participated in and dedicated my career to was in the area of oncology. In a great deal of irony, as you mentioned, when my daughter Bella was 4 years old, she suddenly became paralyzed overnight without warning and was diagnosed with an aggressive stage 4 pediatric cancer, which paralyzed her and then led to an incredible battle over the course of 6 years until she passed away at the age of 10. Professionally, it was a turning point, as you mentioned, for me, particularly after my daughter's widely followed illness and battle. On the night that she passed away, with incredible support from our community, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade of the Miami Heat wrote #LiveLikeBella on their shoes the evening of the NBA Finals in the Eastern Conference, and #LiveLikeBella went viral. So much so that the week after that, Barack Obama, who was president of the U.S. at the time, was in Miami. My wife and I had my younger daughter, Raina, had the opportunity to meet. And it was at that moment that as a family, we decided that we were going to live like Bella, which for Bella meant to serve others. And we decided to start Live Like Bella Childhood Cancer Foundation from the garage of our home to be able to fund pediatric cancer research, to assist families that have children undergoing treatment. And lastly, should a child die of cancer, that Live Like Bella would help to pay for the headstones, the burials, the funerals. And so at the same time, I made a career change, and I was very fortunate and blessed to join ALC Home Health, which was a new realm of healthcare for me as president and co-CEO and co-owner of the company. And it allowed me to be in Miami as Live Like Bella got off the ground, and at the same time, to be able to expand what ALC had already been doing now in its 20-year rich history, also into children. ALC had traditionally been exclusively in the area of adults. And now today, things have changed both in the personal and in the professional. I am a volunteer. I am the chairman of Live Like Bella. I don't make any money from that, but today Live Like Bella has a team that we were able to establish of very dedicated professionals that have now surpassed over $40 million for childhood cancer research. And we are assisting families in 38 countries around the world and across the United States. And in terms of ALC and my professional life, not only have we expanded, thankfully, our adult census that we care for, but we do have a true dedicated subspecialty pediatric team for children that are receiving treatment at home and in the school. And so it's been quite a journey, and we continue down that path.
Love it. And it's a very touching story. And I'm sure Bella will be so proud of her dad, her mom, and her sister. So how's the wider family participating in either ALC or in #Bella's Foundation?
So my daughter, Raina, who just turned 20, is very involved, as well as my wife, who's actually the founder of Live Like Bella. When Bella was towards the end of her battle after 6 years, it was a beautiful Saturday morning, and we were in Houston, Texas at MD Anderson. And Bella was treated and had consultation at centers regarding her case around the world. Final opportunity to eradicate her type of sarcoma was at MD Anderson Cancer Center. She went through a grueling surgery that was well over 11 hours. And as she was recovering, she was put in a medically induced coma to reduce pain and inflammation and her discomfort. And on that Saturday morning was the first time that my wife posted online, "It's a beautiful Saturday morning. Bella's in a coma. She can't go out and do the things that she would normally do. So please, you go out in her honor and you #LiveLikeBella by serving others, by praying for others, by providing laughter, joy, reconciling relationships. To live like Bella means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but ultimately for Bella, it meant to serve and help others. And so my wife started the hashtag, and then after Bella passed away, the three of us decided in unison that we would honor the way that she lived her life in service to others. And so our daughter Raina particularly focuses on the sibling. See, the siblings of children with cancer are often the forgotten man or woman. Obviously, the acute focus of any family is to try to save the sick child. We know exactly what that is. But our daughter Raina has a unique perspective because she knows especially what it's like when girls lose their hair because of the chemotherapy. She knows exactly when they're immunocompromised, the safety cautions that you have to take. And so she is very involved in a lot of our sibling activities in terms of the foundation, of which we have many, including a scholarship called the Love Like Raina program that will be serving siblings of children with cancer. And we're very grateful to continue Bella's legacy, although we miss her beyond what we could express in human words. Like you mentioned, I'm sure that she smiles from heaven, and we'll continue honoring her.
Lovely. Amazing. How does one actually get a hold of the scholarships from Raina? How does someone go ahead?
The Love Like Raina program is established now through a very gracious donor that has established a specific restricted fund for scholarships specifically for siblings. And if you visit livelikebella.org, you'll be able to see that very soon. This is a new program. But in addition to that, we have, ongoing support, what we call in-treatment support, where we provide assistance to families. So Live Like Bella doesn't give money to families. What we do is we pay their bills directly. That could include, up until now, rent, mortgage, hospital copay, pharmacy copay, travel, food, etc. And the family, through their social workers, can upload their bills, and Live Like Bella pays them directly. In the event that they do require some form of ability to pay for groceries, for example, we provide gift cards, are scannable and usable for everything except alcohol, firearms, and tobacco. And so the scholarship program for siblings especially is not just scholarships in the academic sense. Certainly that's a part of it. But one of the great problems that a family unit has is that all of a sudden you've got a child care issue. At least one parent will have to stop working if you have a two-parent household to begin with. And, this is a type of scenario where you cannot drop off your 4-year-old at the hospital for chemo and then go to the office for a few hours. So now you also have a child care issue where if you have any young siblings, which is usually the case chronologically, when children are diagnosed with cancer, they tend to be on the younger end of the spectrum. And the other child, well, how do we care for that child? So one of the things that the scholarship program will be doing is we'll be paying for matriculation in schools so that the siblings can live as normal life as they can while their brother or sister goes through the unfortunate battle that they will.
That's very well thought of, right? So it's not only the child that's suffering, you'll also take care of the siblings too. I think that's amazing. We spoke about Barack Obama, we spoke about LeBron James. So how did Bella's story become a global movement, Live Like Bella, and how did it impact your leadership philosophy?
Well, viral nature of the hashtag was just simply organic.
Right.
And, one of the things that I will say is that, Bella battled longer than anyone could have imagined. And so over the course of 6 years, I guess you could say there's a lot of momentum follow. The first aspect of coming together regarding Bella was that people used to call themselves self-proclaimed Bella believers. And so when Bella was first diagnosed, the initial presentation was sudden and immediate paralysis. And she presented with a massive tumor in her spine and 9 other tumors throughout her body. And by virtue of the fact of what I did for a living in terms of pharma, and also my best friend who turned 99 years old this year, he's a pediatric cardiologist, he's my father. He was the former medical director of Miami Children's Hospital, which is now known as Nicholas Children's Hospital. So by virtue of those things, we were able to scour the earth. And universally, the prognosis was that Bella would never walk again and have but a few weeks to a few months to live. And yet, with extraordinary medicine and the support of many people around the world, the impossible was accomplished where Bella regained the ability to walk, run, and jump by miracle. And so there was a great deal of rallying around Bella's life and battle. No one thought that she would live as she did for 6 years, again, regaining the ability to walk, run, and jump. And so I think the momentum regarding leading to the hashtag of Live Like Bella, of serving others, was a 6-year period. And then, of course, on the night that she passed, that LeBron James and Dwayne Wade wrote that on their shoes, that just accelerated things tremendously. I remember, Simac, looking at 2 things that really caught my attention. Number one, I remember seeing Bella on SportsCenter on ESPN the night that she passed and the night after, because LeBron spoke of her several times. And then in addition to that, I remember I had not been on Instagram until the day after my daughter died. And I remember seeing children from all over the world, even children that don't comprehend English, writing hashtag Live Like Bella on their shoes because they were emulating what they saw on television. And so it was an extraordinary thing for a multitude of reasons. And one in particular that I think is important for your guests to know is that prior to becoming paralyzed and prior to to being diagnosed with cancer, our daughter Bella had been born with low oxygen to her brain. Delivery was very complicated. My wife had been in labor for more than 13 hours, and so she suffered hypoxia to her brain. This is prior to cancer. And so her early childhood was very challenging. Bella could not speak and articulate like typical children. We knew what it was like to be made fun of and be marginalized. We knew what it was like to not be invited to certain play dates with other families. We experienced instances in our early childhood where we would go out to dinner, and because Bella's speech was so delayed, she would moan or make noises. We would have strangers come up to our table at dinner and say, "Your daughter's disturbing our meal. You guys need to learn how to be better parents." And yet what was once such a difficulty, because we so desperately as young parents wanted a normal, typical child, later became an extraordinary hidden blessing. And the reason why I say that with confidence is because Bella never asked me, "Daddy, am I going to die?" Bella could never fully comprehend the severity of her illness. And so there was innocence, there was bravery, there was unwavering courage, and she was joyful and she was fearless in the way that she lived her life, because she could not comprehend how bad her situation was, if you would. Here in our family, oftentimes we'd hear people say, "No, because so-and-so was dying with cancer." They almost whisper it. Bella would hear that with her innocence and say, "Cancer? I have cancer," saying like, "Today's a beautiful day. What's the problem?" And I relate to that not just in the personal life, that extraordinary example that we had, but also in the business world. And Bella tackled everything she had with bravery. And the truth is that, we will face tribulation both in our personal and our professional lives, which we cannot control the level upon which, the severity and the depth of it. It could be something minimal, or it could be something serious, like being paralyzed and diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Same is true in the professional sense. What we can control is how we respond to it. And the word response is important because it's not a reaction, but a response. It takes a very deep analysis of yourself to be able to look up and say, "I am better equipped. I am better equipped than anyone to face this particular challenge." But that is a very critical choice. And to lastly add to why I believe the viral nature of Live Like Bella, prior to Live Like Bella, I had published a book in 2010 about Bella's life called Why Not Me? And the premise of Why Not Me was that so often in my life, I would look up with minor inconveniences and say, "God, why me?" But when I truly asked that question with sincerity in myself and in my mind, was the night that Bella was first diagnosed. She was paralyzed. We were in a pediatric intensive care unit. I could not believe that I found myself in such a scenario. And I looked up to the heavens and I said, "God, why me?" And of course, that question came without answer in that moment. But later I learned that if I'm capable of taking stock of the people that have been purposely in my life, the people and the skills that I've been blessed with uniquely, then instead of asking why me, I can declare why not me. And I can choose then to walk in victory. And that perhaps is the greatest lesson that my daughter taught me that relates both to my professional and my personal.
That's amazing. I think one of my friends mentioned to me, God gives you these problems because he feels you're the only one who can solve it and you're ready to solve it. Sometimes that's testing us. What kind of awareness does one need to have today for other parents who are listening in, other business leaders listening in, just to be more sympathetic, empathic, whatever you want to call it? What kind of guidance or awareness that one needs to have?
It's very challenging, right? Because the world can be very impatient, and we could also then say the world can be very cruel, unfortunately. At the same time, I've seen very beautiful aspects of the world and the society, both in the US and around the world, with regards to Live Like Bella. However, specific to childhood cancer, there is a very significant lack of awareness. Childhood cancer remains the #1 disease killer of children. There are 12 major types of childhood cancers. And in the area of lymphoma and leukemia, thankfully, we have made very significant advances. And when I say we, the world. Today, depending on the type of leukemia, it is more than 90% survivable, which we're very happy about. The other 10 major types of childhood cancer survivability, unfortunately, has not improved in 30 years. And so it remains I hate to say it, but a societal acceptable reality until, of course, it comes knocking to your own personal door. And so awareness is very, very important about childhood cancer, because awareness leads to an expansion of funding, and funding leads to an expansion of research, and ultimately bringing forth treatments and cures. In regards to societal awareness, at that time that we would be sitting at dinner tables or we would have people ostracize us, we didn't know how to deal with it, because the only thing we could come up with at the time was my wife and I we would print little business cards rather than get into an altercation with people publicly. Because think about how hurtful that is. We wrote on these cards something to the effect of, "Please excuse the interruption. Our daughter is on the spectrum of autism." And she wasn't. Bella had global developmental delays because of the strokes that she suffered in the white matter of her brain. because of when she was born. But it's the only way that we could have people comprehend at all, to have some patience, to have some empathy. And so we would hand that to people rather than getting into a verbal or physical altercation. Worse, with people, we would hand that to them. And we'd normally see a response of, oh, and then some reflection. So I think jumping to conclusions, right, is a big lesson that we should all avoid. And I did see, people experience that as well.
Got it. Talking about your book, the title, Why Not Me? How do people at work, business leaders, CEOs actually absorb that as part of their culture, that part of their day-to-day?
When we're talking about leadership, and I've had the privilege of being and serving in that role for a long time in a variety of organizations, big and small. Leadership and the parallels with asking yourself, why not me, or declaring why not me, starts in the very private moments for us as leaders. We feel the pressures of our organization. We feel the pressures of expectations, of shareholders, of our families in the private sense. You name it. That starts when I go to bed at night and when I wake up. And at the same time, as I address my teams and look forward to the initiatives that we have professionally, the same is true. Markets will fluctuate. Things will go unexpectedly. Challenges will arise within the organization, within other teammates. And so that same philosophy of overcoming adversity, of choosing to walk in victory versus being a victim of circumstances, applies both in the personal, deep, profound personal choice as well as organizational. Whether it's competitive intrusion, whether it's a new entry to the market, a disruptor of any kind, or the things that we didn't perceive as business leaders. In that moment, we have a choice, don't we?
Yes.
We can crumble or we can conquer. And as a leader, it's our choice, I believe, and it's our duty to look at those that we are entrusted in leading, because it is that, to have them choose the same.
I want to hear your view of it. Why not me? Does it come from a position of power, or does it come from a position of weakness?
Power. If we can make that choice, then everything changes. But it is a choice, and it's not an easy choice depending on the circumstance that we're in. I mean, clearly, if we're talking about minor inconveniences, well, then you know what? We're very fortunate to have minor inconveniences. In this case, I had to learn that lesson with my 4-year-old daughter paralyzed in an intensive care unit, telling me that her life expectancy was a matter of months to live. And the first time that I looked up, as I mentioned before, in the pediatric intensive care unit, that night I saw 2 children die right before my eyes. And I said, why me? But later I learned through Bella's lessons, a little girl who could barely speak, a little girl who was marginalized and made fun of, taught me so much with the glance of her eyes, with her smile, and the way that she lived her life with courage and unwavering faith. And I believe that's what the world saw. Because frankly and sadly, as I just mentioned to you, childhood cancer is the #1 disease killer of children. And there are many other causes that unfortunately cause us to lose our children. And yet, this little girl who could barely speak captured the attention of the world. And I frankly believe, #1, very honored and privileged to be her daddy. But #2, I think what people saw in those eyes and in that smile was something greater than themselves. And that's what has caused people to go out and live like Bella, to serve others. Why would we? It's counterintuitive. We have our own agendas. We're trying to accomplish our own goals. Why should I tend to the tragedy of others? Well, that leads to a larger philosophical discussion, personally and organizationally. Because ultimately, I believe it's better to give than to receive. Not just within myself, within my family, but even within my organization. One of the things that I believe is important, Simac, is that everyone talks about finding purpose. And certainly individually, we can debate that within ourselves. What is my purpose? But organizations and teams need that as well. Above and beyond the business, above and beyond the spreadsheets, above and beyond financial projections, I want you to consider this. You look at your organization, our employees, when they go out on the weekends or they go on holiday, and someone asks the inevitable question, what do you do for a living? What's the answer to that question? Because the answer to that question is far beyond, well, I create spreadsheets. I love the example of the 2 bricklayers. For those that haven't heard it, this is a gentleman that's walking down a sidewalk and he comes across a construction site. There are 2 bricklayers doing the exact same job. The person on the sidewalk asks the first bricklayer, what are you doing? And the bricklayer looks up in annoyment that he's been interrupted and says, isn't it obvious? I'm laying bricks. He then asks the next employee, hey, what are you doing? He looks up and says, I'm building an orphanage for children. They're doing the same thing, but one has the mission imprinted within them. One sees purpose in what they're doing. And that second employee is the example what I think us as business leaders should be doing across our organization, so that when our colleagues are asked at that barbecue, at that birthday party, on that weekend or holiday, what do you do for a living? They can look with purpose and determination. This is the impact that I make on the world. And that's what it means to live like that.
That's very powerful. When it comes to your team, how do they look upon you? What kind of values do you portray on any given day? I know you're the captain also from a leadership perspective.
So looking at the broader mission of what we're accomplishing, for example, and I was in pharma, yes, it's a very lucrative business. Yes, it's an expanding industry daily. But the focus was on, in this particular disease state with this particular medication, how are we enhancing the lives of the patients that we're honored to serve? Focusing on that. In addition to that, here at ALC, treating the elderly and children at home, post-surgically, post-hospitalization, enhancing their lives. What a privilege it is to care for those that once cared for us, particularly the elderly. And so that is the focus of what we try to accomplish. What is in the best interest of the patient. Everything else falls in line after that. At the same time, organizationally, I believe staying very in tune as much as is appropriate and as much as can be shared with the personal lives of our teammates. I had one tell me, a man in Dallas, Texas, who I admired greatly, Mike Vanagan, he founded an extraordinary organization, and their offices were impeccably beautiful in Dallas. In fact, he even had cattle, longhorn bulls, outside that you could see roaming the building. I mean, it was the most unique and beautiful. And he took great pride in telling me how much time and money and effort was invested in that. And he looked at me and he said, Raymond, we as society spend more time at work than we do with our own families at home.
True. Yeah.
It should be somewhat enjoyable, right? And so within here, I agree with that. We spend more time working than we do with our loved ones doing something else in life. It should be as purposeful as possible and appropriate. We should be in tune with what's happening in the world. If there's been a disaster somewhere that our company can contribute to, if one of our teammates has a family member that's ill or they themselves, to be able to rally around them. And to continuously allow, as an organization, outlets for our teams to be able to serve the community and serve the world, I think is very important.
Absolutely. What are your non-negotiables when building high-performing teams, whether at ALC or Live Like Bella?
Number one, integrity.
Good.
I think for me, that is the single most important thing. While the topic of a leader is born or a leader is developed can be debated for hours, integrity is something that absolutely paramount for me, because everything else can be built upon that. But if there is no integrity, if there's nefarious intent, if there is a skewed moral compass that is not aligned with the goals of the organization, then that for me is very, very important. Number two is communication. And the reason why I say that is because you might have someone that has the best of intentions, but if communication skills are not there, then that may disrupt the larger organization. Now, I enjoy, believe it or not, in a personal sense, from a coaching perspective, being able to help folks improve their communication skills. Not just from a standpoint of vernacular or projection, but, oftentimes we run into people, even in our personal lives, that they may write in a manner which is perceived to be very abrasive or combative. And sometimes I've received messages from people that I work with in text, my goodness, why is this person so upset? And then you call them and they're not at all. And there's a misalignment. And so communication, in addition to the integrity, is very important. And lastly, drive, hunger. I would much rather have someone that is hungry and desiring of success and have to bring them back than to have someone that I have to continuously whip to get going. And the truth is that I think all of us human beings go through different variations of that in different points of our lives. But as a leader, I think it's important to be the barometer to the best of our abilities of where folks are and help them along that path.
So integrity, communication, and hunger. Maybe in that sense, the purpose, which is much bigger for success. What advice would you actually give to other charitable leaders trying to raise funds and build global awareness like this one, like you've done at Live Like Bella?
First, I think you have to have a very concise and targeted message. We have to understand that we cannot solve all of the world's problems, but if we can focus on one particular area, then that's what we should do, and we should craft our messaging surrounding that. That's number one. Number two, humility. Here's what I mean by that. I will never forget when I was in my graduate program, specific and in great irony, prior to me knowing that I would have a daughter with cancer, prior to knowing that I would be launching, help start a global nonprofit, is the day that you open a nonprofit entity is the day that it begins its closing, eventual closing, because you will either accomplish your mission or you should have the humility to at some point turn over your resources to somebody that can accomplish the mission better than you. That takes a great deal of humility. And I think that is something important for all charitable leaders to keep in mind.
Got it. And you spoke about your meeting with Barack Obama, and I'm pretty sure you had some collaboration at Oxford and Lord David Cameron. How did all that come about, basically?
Recently, with regards to Lord David Cameron, one of the very gracious donors that we have for our endowment. Last year, Live Like Bella opened its first endowment, which was a major milestone to ensure that Live Like Bella is continuing. Live Like Bella turned from a hashtag and a sad story of a little girl to a necessary entity around the world. And so that endowment was a very important milestone. Has a very personal and professional relationship with Lord David Cameron, who is now working very closely with a group called the Oxford Harrington Research Institute out of Oxford in the UK. And he was in Miami for a board meeting, and very much wished to visit Live Like Bella because the work he had heard Live Like Bella was doing, not just in the UK, but around the world. And so we are currently working with the Oxford Harrington Research Institute. We are working with Oxford and the Office of Lord David Cameron to create some synergistic effects on some of the genetic repository that has been created in the United Kingdom, which is remarkable, and some of the actionable research that Live Like Bella has been able to fund in the US, and how potentially some of that work can work together to help not just children in the future in the United Kingdom, but adults as well. So we're very excited about that. In the United States, we also are working very closely, not just in Washington, but state by state. Recently, my wife and I were requested after several presentations in the White House in the beginning of this year. My wife and I gave some lectures at Stanford University a few months after that. And now we're working very closely with Stanford and other groups in California in union with the state legislature in California so that they can begin funding pediatric cancer research. It's important to note that one of the things that have greatly accelerated the research funding that now surpassed $40 million is that roughly 6 years ago, we created a partnership, a very unique partnership with the state of Florida called the Live Like Bella Pediatric Cancer Research Initiative. And this one-of-a-kind initiative, which is a public-private partnership with the state of Florida, in very simple terms, we wanted to use state funding to fund pediatric cancer research. But we did not want to create an additional taxpayer burden on the citizens of Florida. And so what we decided was to use the revenue from the cigarette taxes, from the sales of cigarettes in the state of Florida. And it was a beautiful way of not adding a new tax, and at the same time using something that's not good for you, which is smoking cigarettes, and using it for the benefit of children with cancer. And so Republicans, Democrats, right and left, and everyone in between could rally behind that. And it has been a remarkable accelerant for the innovation of children with cancer. And so we are trying to get other states to follow suit because unfortunately in the United States, 24 states out of the 50 do not have childhood cancer recognized as a priority. And so we're using Florida's example as something that can be done in other places, which is budget neutral and really makes a very big difference. Here in Florida, for example, you ask me, Simac, how is the weather? Every time you and I speak, you ask me, how is the weather in Florida? Well, the truth is it's quite good all year round. And the reason why that's important to what we're discussing is because if you are a childhood cancer researcher, whether in the US or abroad, and this is your passion, you have to eat what you kill in terms of your grant requests, and you have to continuously be requesting grants. The Live Like Bella research funds are $5.3 million at present, every year in perpetuity. That money is available and only and exclusively for childhood cancer research. So if this is your passion, then why not come to the great state of Florida, take a position at an entity within Florida, because you will have access to these Florida funds in perpetuity. And our weather tends to be very good, and we have no state income tax as well, and we're the home of Walt Disney World. So why not move to Florida?
It's a great incentive to come out there. Just talking about the 40 million that you've been raised, right? What are some of the pivotal moments or strategies that help scale the Live Like Bella Foundation to this level?
One of the things that has helped the cause of children's cancer, and specifically Live Like Bella, has been able to have expertise in the area beyond tragedy, beyond the passion, or find expertise in that area. So, in great irony, what I did for a living for 20 years was to launch and develop cancer drugs. Fortunately, I could not find anything on earth that could help my own little girl. Now, however, we do what we can with the experience that I had, that other members of Live Like Bella now on the National Advisory Board, etc. We had specificity on how to commercialize drugs, how the system works, and how to change that. Thoughts on how to change. At the same time, we've brought in folks that have expertise in areas that I didn't have. that others did. And that's important. Diversity of thought, diversity of talent with a common mission, a unifying mission, has expanded things exponentially. For example, one of the greatest hires I've made in my life is Nicole de Lara Puente, who is the CEO of Live. When my wife and I started Live Like Bella, and it was founded by my wife in our garage, and here we are as volunteers sending assistance to families all around the country and the world, it got to a point where we realized it was unsustainable for us. We needed somebody to man the ship. We needed a CEO. And neither my wife and I have ever taken any compensation from Live Like Bella, nor have we ever wanted to. We realized we needed help. And Nicole brought a level of specificity and experience that we didn't have. So she had experience as the former press secretary to the Speaker of the House of Representatives in Florida. She brought that government. She also brought a great deal of television. And there was a series of others, when we were getting Live Like Bella off the ground, that worked in event promotion and management, helped us significantly. At the same time, in media relations. The media is very important to get your message out. And we're very grateful for the folks that had given of themselves, of their time, their talent, and their treasure, not for us, but for the benefit of generations of children that will never meet us. So I think that's very, very important.
Absolutely. How do you spot leadership potential when hiring or promoting someone?
What do they believe in?
Okay, belief.
And are they infectious? I think that's critically important, because ultimately you need a lot of things to be in a leadership role, but you need those two critical elements. The other thing that I think is very important is, within the context of interviews, can you pressure test how this person will respond to unexpected challenge? So I'm not recommending this by any means, but way back in the pharma days, one of the things that we were guilty of doing is, if we were bringing in a final candidate, one of the things that folks would do was to bring them to a restaurant, invite them to lunch. But prior to the candidate arriving, we would arrive early, and someone would say to the waiter, everything this person that's coming in and sits in this chair orders, get it absolutely wrong. And the waiter would be tipped very handsomely in this simulation. Everything they order, get it wrong. And if you can spill a drink of water or something, even better. And you get to see how that person responds. Are they discourteous to the wait staff? Are they incredibly flustered? I'm not saying that simulation would be appropriate in today's day and age, but it exemplifies the point. With as much as you can, how will someone like that react? Can't always have that opportunity. You can't always get that preview of someone. But the point is, we must respond and not react. And I guess emotional intelligence would be very key to understanding how to identify leaders.
That's amazing. I'm pretty sure I've heard some other guests mention the same thing. That's how they actually go about identifying people out here too in the UK. So I think it's a very valid exercise even in today's day and age. Whenever I've spoken to you, I want to understand, Coast Guard captain to CEO to global speaker, how do you manage your energy and time?
I can't say that I'm the best at managing my time, but the one tip that I will offer that I learned later in life is defensive schedule. The word defensive inherently means to protect someone. And what I mean by that in terms of myself is, and to protect oneself. And the reason why I feel that's important is because in order for me to be the best chairman of the board, in order for me to be the best CEO that I can, in order for me to be the best daddy and husband, I need to protect Raymond. So defensive scheduling involves scheduling time to myself that is non-negotiable as much as possible, because duty does call 24 hours a day, where I can take the time to make sure that my stress levels come out of the smokestack instead of out of the bricks. I need to be the best version of Raymond so that I can best serve the world, serve my family, and live like Bella.
Love it. I'm also going to ask you on that particular point, how do you maintain physical fitness and mental fitness?
So I'll start with mental fitness. I actually call it spiritual nourishment. And so what I mean by that is, each day our intellect is nourished by what we see and hear and read on television, in the media, etc. The same thing with our physical bodies. And I'm certainly guilty of eating too much. And innately, I don't always make the best food choices as well. So then the question then is, those things are true. What about my soul? If I do not purposely nourish my soul, then is it also being fed or nourished by the things around me and what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing? And oftentimes, unfortunately, in the world, those two aren't always the best things to influence. So the first thing I do each morning before doing anything else, I purposely read a scripture that comes to me by a service each morning at 5 a.m. and I meditate upon that, because the first thing I want to ingest before taking on the world's problems is something that's good for me, something purposeful for me. That's the first thing. In terms of physical fitness, as much as possible and no less than 3 times a week, some sort of physical activity. Again, helping make sure that the smoke comes out the smokestacks and not out the bricks. And what I mean by that is just stress, physical ailments, mental ailments. All of those things can come if we're not purposely doing that. So yes, it's very important. And in my case, which I know you're going to, fishing, defensive scheduling. And in fact, I'll be leaving for a very epic trip this Friday, of which I'm very excited about.
Love it. I'm going to talk about the TEDx Talks. If anyone has not seen it, I'll put the link in the description below. It was titled Tragedy to Triumph. That was such an amazing talk. What does triumph mean to you today?
I'm very humbled by the TEDx talk. It was put on by my alma mater, which was the first time they ever paid for the licensing of TEDx. And more so, I was extraordinarily humbled that my talk was number 2 in the world in 2024. Just amazing. But that's Bella. I am not that good. Although we couldn't see her, she was standing right next to me on that stage that night. Hopefully deliver a message that powerfully and positively impacts people. It's a choice. Common theme in that talk is my family and I have faced the worst human experience imagined. It is completely and entirely unnatural to bury your own child. I am a father that's a member of a club that I would never want anyone to be a part of. I held my little girl in her first breath on this earth and in her very last. And as challenging as that sounds, it is. I choose to see her life as a gift. I choose triumph over that tragedy. And I choose to believe that her life continues far beyond the human existence. And now she watches from heaven as we try to live like she did, with innocence and service to others. You know, at the same time, I'll share with you, Simac, that there was a documentary about Bella's life that was published. It was created by high school students. It's available on Amazon Prime Video, called Live Like Bella. And amazingly, again, these are the things of Bella. It won an Emmy Award. It won the Best Documentary in the United States for the Student Television Awards. And just incredibly grateful and humbled. I would encourage people to watch that for the documentary. Grab some popcorn. It is 28 minutes long, with their loved one, or the TEDx talk is available on YouTube.
Definitely. I'll definitely put those 2 links in the description. How do you keep yourself grounded? You know, despite the media attention, you've been to the White House, you've David Cameron, Barack Obama, LeBron James also. Tell me, how do you keep yourself grounded through all this, Raymond?
Focusing on the mission. This is not about me. When I look at my life, I'm grateful for the people that have supported our family. In fact, the greatest fear that I have, Simac, is that my family and I will be unable to effectively express our gratitude. We are so grateful, beyond what I could ever say. Beyond, you know, I've seen so many people give up their time and talent, but they don't have to. They've stood shoulder to shoulder with us in this cause, in Bella's memory. And I can never express, I think, to a level that I can rest of gratitude. Focusing on the mission is the most important thing in the way that I stay grounded. The accolades of congratulations, you know, number 2 TED Talk views in the world, best documentary in the country, whatever else. At the end of the day, I think about all those families that don't have that voice, don't have that platform, but have been in the same shoes that I have been. When you are told that your child has cancer and it is an incurable disease, you find yourself in complete disbelief. How can this be? How can it be in today's day and age? We're talking about an incurable cancer. It's an impossibility. We can put people on the moon, we can have self-driving cars, we have all types of advancements, but in this area, our precious children, unfortunately, we have no solution to them. One of the things that is extremely humbling is that each year we do an event in September, which is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, called Bella's Ball. And it is a black tie gala that we do on the day after our National Research Symposium in Miami. And it is a beautiful black tie gala event where it is very unique in the sense that we have children also that come in black tie, but children that are fighting cancer. So you will never forget why you went to Bella's Ball, because they have an extraordinary time. You will laugh, you will cry, but you will never forget why you went to Bella's Ball. And we capture social media data every so often on the night of Bella's Ball. And the last time we captured the data, there was 19 million Twitter impressions the night of Bella's Ball of hashtag Live Like Bella. And the majority of Bella's Ball has picked up the live stream, usually in 15 countries. But the IP addresses in the United States primarily come from children's hospitals in the Northeast. So what that tells me is that those are families, those are parents, those are children that are admitted to hospital, that are looking through the proverbial window of the internet at what we're doing with Live Like Bella in Miami. And that tells me 2 things. One, the level of desperation that they have. Because when you're told that you're in a situation like this, you're in a very dark place and you feel no one cares. And yet they get to look out the window of the internet and see someone cared and someone is doing something about it. And I think that invokes a great amount of responsibility. So while yes, I can celebrate certain accolades because of what Live Like Bella's accomplished, what we've done, professionally in my professional career, the mission continues. There is much to do, and many people are counting on us. They are counting on us day and night. And those called to that responsibility have a duty to continue.
You said it well, right? People are at a dark place, in a very lonely place, and they want to reach out to someone else the other, and looking at these things that you do is amazing. I think it touches everybody in some shape or form. 19 million tweets. That's great. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what alternative kind of life would you be living right now, Raymond?
That is a very interesting question. When I was a younger man, I was strongly considering going into the Naval Academy. I decided early on that I didn't want to be on a ship for 6 months at a time, and that instead I decided that I wanted to have a family and a career that wasn't living on the ocean. Amazingly, that decision of having a family and children, brought a whole new unexpected path related primarily to my family and my children, which is serving so many people around the world. But I think if that would not have happened, if that had not been divinely orchestrated for me, then there's a chance that I might have been on the ocean for some.
Interesting. What's your favorite catch or best story from the water?
Well, adventures in the ocean are unceasing. And if you talk to a good seaman, every story, gets embellished more and more, whether it's the size of the fish or the circumstances. But I've had the privilege of being on the water my entire life. I am a 100-ton master United States Coast Guard captain, and I'm also a member of the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, which that in itself is a new personal development for me. I joined the auxiliary, and very soon I will be taking what's called coxswain training. Coxswain training is captain training, but for military exercises, for search and rescue. As an auxiliarist, as a volunteer, I will have the skill necessary to be a force multiplier for the Coast Guard should we be needed. And so that's exciting for me. I'm back in the classroom. I'll be back behind the wheel, demonstrating my competency through different simulation and exercises with the United States Coast Guard. So that's exciting. My favorite fish to catch is the Atlantic broadbill swordfish. And the reason why is because it is the most technical type of fishing I've ever done. We're talking about very large fish that, at least off the coast of Florida and in most places during the daytime, live more than 2,000 foot of depth. And so you have to use very heavy duty tackle. You have to outsmart very smart fish that lives in darkness with lights and so forth and so on. And you're using a minimal size of braid or fishing line to bring up a beast that's well over 500 pounds. And so I've experienced the joy of catching 11 swordfish in my life. They are absolutely delicious, and you're welcome to come over for some of the recipes, because the other, to the victor the spoils as well. I did catch one. I was very, very lucky. Something called a pumpkin swordfish. So according to the internet, and I didn't know this, 1 in every 3,000 swordfish is what's called pumpkin. So on the surface, they look identical to any other regular swordfish, but when you cut them open, their meat is orange, like a pumpkin. And the reason why is because that particular swordfish, for reasons that we don't know, decided to eat deep water shrimp. They decided on a diet of deep water shrimp. So it turns their meat, their flesh inside orange. And it is spectacularly delicious. Swordfish is good if made the right way. Pumpkin swordfish, I think you should fly to Miami and I'll give you some pumpkin swordfish. It is.
If you're going to invite me, I'll be there. Definitely. Just a couple of more questions. Through this whole journey of yours, right? Everything that you've been through. Was there a moment when you thought, I can't do this? And how did you overcome it?
The feeling was not met with me, I can't do this. It was more of a plea to the heavens. Give me the strength to do what you're asking. I will do it. Give me the strength. Give me the wisdom. Give me the people in my path. I don't see it clearly. I don't like this, but onward we go. Why not? Who better than me? Think of the irony. Developed cancer drugs for 20 years. My best friend's a pediatric cardiologist. My master's degree was in nonprofit leadership. All of these things were not serendipitous, I believe. They were with purpose. And now, Raymond, let's go. Yes, the deepest and most extraordinary pain imagined. But I know where Bella is. I know who she's with. And I know that I will see her again. And I am certain that when the next time I see that smile, will be in heaven, and she will be well pleased with what we did to try to help her friend. Because in great irony, as Bella began her life being made fun of because of her mental handicap and delays, Bella's real friend were the other children in the hospital. They could comprehend, am I going to do? They could comprehend, why do I come here to take these horrible surgeries and chemos and radiations? Bella didn't. So her concern was never for herself. Her concern was for others, was for her friends that she made in the hospital, the ones that didn't make fun of her, the ones that didn't marginalize her, the ones that didn't judge her. And now, at least I believe, that what her body did not allow her to do while she was on earth, she's capable of doing from heaven. And my duty as her daddy, keep going with the example that she gave.
That's very powerful. Today where you are, who's part of your inner circle?
Certainly my wife couldn't be more polar opposites in terms of personality, philosophy, politics, but on so much else, we are lockstep. We have an unbreakable bond. Our daughter, Raina, we are a unit. We oftentimes will put our hands together when we have to do something important, and we'll do RT on we're a team. I have a lot of wonderful people in my life, but a very small core group of friends that I choose to create memories with. And I'm very blessed to be able to have the favor in the ear of many people that will answer the phone and will answer the call, because I've been fortunate enough that I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for the benefit of children that will never meet us, and I need your help.
You're definitely blessed in that way. If we have to sum it up, your family's top 3 qualities. Let's take one for each, one for yourself, one for Raina, and one for your wife. What would those 3 be?
So the 3 of us, I would say universally, number 1, faith, resourcefulness, humor. Very important. We have certain glances and certain innuendos that the 3 of us know. You know, if you think about the dynamics of your family or any family, there's inside jokes, right? I can't think of one in particular right now, but we can be anywhere in the world. We could be doing something on television, or I've seen my daughter Raina take the stage in front of thousands of people at such a young age, and we'll look at each other, we'll make an inside joke to see which one of us cracks. Believe it or not, Raina usually will scold my wife Shauna and I if we're making some sort of joke. She'll give us a sharp eye, like, it's not the time for that.
Got it. What's next for you?
Well, in the immediate future is continuously, number 1, professionally growing ALC Home Health in all the initiatives that we have. I look forward to the day that employees that have been at this entity will retire, because they invested their time and their talent and their lives trusting in us and the vision that we have for this company. That's a great privilege for me. In terms of Live Like Bella, continuing to expand the initiatives that we have around the world, I look forward to working in partnership with Oxford very soon, because I think that's extremely powerful in terms of accelerating research. I'd like to see other states in the United States make childhood cancer a priority and model any variation of the Live Like Bella research initiative. They don't have to name it after Live Like Bella. They can name it whatever they like. But goodness, we need to advance things. Using the cigarette taxes, the vaping taxes, which is my next priority within the state of Florida, is an easy way that everyone can come around and do something about the number 1 disease killer of children. And so, lastly, I will share, it's not public information, but for all those, you can see the preview here. Live Like Bella recently received a very large grant from the state of Florida to create the first ever comprehensive childhood cancer map. And so this has never existed. It has existed in adults, certainly, and the results speak for themselves. There's a series of benefits to the organizations that are designated NCI centers, or National Comprehensive Cancer Centers. And we intend to develop the same multifaceted, from all the wraparound services that are involved with the screening, diagnosis, and treatment and survivability of a child with cancer, will now be created for the first time through Live Like Bella. It's a very big undertaking, which we're very excited about, but we're looking forward to changing the world.
Wow. Congratulations on that one. That's a massive step forward in the right direction out there. Raymond, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing your story and Bella's story. She will always live forever. And proud parents, proud sister. Thank you.
Thank you, Simac. It's been a pleasure being on. See you soon.
See you soon.